Hello and welcome to Unedited Economics. Today we're going to be talking about the AP tests I took this year, which is 5, but 6 classes, we'll talk about that. And usually I say get off this channel, it's mine, but today I'm looking for people's opinions. Please comment in the description. So I took 5 tests this year. I took 6 classes. The tests I took were US Government, Lit, English Lit, Psychology, German Bio, Comparative Government. That's 6. I did not take the German test. I can't remember what classes I've taken. I guess 5 is just too many for me to remember. So I want to just get started with AP US Government because that's the one that I took first. So how hard was the class? The class was so easy. I think it could reasonably be agreed that if you've taken an AP test before, US Government is not going to be hard at all. It's going to be your typical or less than typical rigor of an AP test, only because many people are already familiar with all of the information in a US Gov test. It's often if you were to only take one AP test, it probably was US Government because it's so popular. I studied. How much did I study? I studied a little bit in the class. I took it first semester and I took the test. At the end of the year. During the tests I would study because if US Government is important to know, definitely learn it. Even if you're confident on the test, something you want to retain. But before the test, I probably studied for an hour, honestly. My predicted score is a 4. I feel like I'm maybe generous because I didn't study for it. And you should definitely take this class if you're interested in politics or government. Not because you want to learn something, because you may not learn something, but if you like the experience of being in a political science class or any type of government class, definitely it gives you some kind of experience. Because even if you like the subject, you just don't know what the classes are structured like. I think it's a good surface level class for if you're interested in government. So then AP English Literature, the second AP English test after AP Language. I took AP Language last year and got a 5, so I was pretty confident. But in terms of how hard this class was, I have to say it was pretty hard, especially in terms of rigor. Lots and lots and lots and lots of essays in class, out of class, relating to books, not relating to books. I have a feeling that my teacher gave us the same amount of rigor as most English literature teachers do. I didn't have anything especially hard, nor did I have a super easy teacher. How much did I study? I didn't study at all because it's English, and what are you going to study? I guess through the entire 10 months of my senior year, I took a lot of practice essays, but by studying, I think if you're trying to save time by not studying, you shouldn't study for English Lit. You either know it or you don't, especially if you're taking AP Literature the same year that you're taking the SAT. If you're studying the same types of question responses, you don't have to worry about studying for this test. I didn't. The test was, I have to say, it took something from me that I'm never going to get back. It's like a 3.5-hour test, super long multiple choice, 2 hours to write your essays. It's set up the same way as language, so if you enjoy taking the language test, then you'll suffer less taking the literature test. It was pretty tough. The questions are definitely higher level, especially if you don't have an English teacher who's actively teaching you the multiple choice questions in class. You might want to take some practice outside of class or buy like a Princeton review of it. They definitely ask the same type of questions on the test as they do in practice. There's a formula of some sort that they follow. The multiple choice, the written answer portion for the essays, why couldn't I remember the word for essay? The extended response. If you practice a lot of those outside of class, they're exactly what you expect going in. There's going to be poetry, prose, and the open response. If you're scared about that open response, remember, pick a couple books, go on College Board, and find those practice responses, and just write a couple. Don't even write the whole thing, just write out what your arguments would be. My predicted score, is a 3, hopefully. I'm going to a state school, so they'll take 3s. And you should take this class if you enjoy English. You should also take this class if you don't have a very rigorous schedule for your senior year or whatever year you're taking it, because it keeps your mind working, definitely. One tip for anyone taking the AP Literature test is to pick your pen wisely. If you're going to be writing straight for 2 hours, especially, you can write all 3 essays separately, you know, you have some time, that's considered practice, but if you're going to sit down and write 2 hours of essays, you need a pen that's light so your hand doesn't get tired, but heavy enough so it doesn't look like scribbles. Alright, so then on to AP German. So I did not take the test for this class because I'm not very good at German, but I did take it for 4 years. My 4th year was the AP German class. So I'm gonna skip right to, okay, how hard was the class? I can't answer that. Everyone's class is different. My tips though, when the AP German test is gonna ask you the same exact questions as the practice, stuff like, I'm guessing here, I talked to people who did take it. They're going to be the same types of questions. So practice. If you can get your teacher to sit with you and practice in a time that's outside of class, you're going to do so much better. Also, you need to learn parts of speech, conjugation, and present tense and future tense and past tense, because the AP test will specifically ask you to speak in those tenses. So if I had taken the test, I would have gotten a 1, but I didn't, so save myself $100. Then on to AP Bio. So I am not a science person. I have never liked science, but I took AP Bio in hopes I'd do well enough to get out of a class in college. And I have to say, as someone coming from an not a science background with no interest in science, bio was actually eye-opening. I didn't learn to like biology, but I did learn, there's a lot of important things you can learn in the class, and although it is kind of a scary class for people who don't like science, it's easier than you think it will be. The class for me was extremely hard. My teacher was pretty rigorous, pretty tough grader, lots and lots of labs, a couple lab reports. Throughout the year I studied a lot. I have never dedicated my time to something that I haven't liked before, like in this situation, but in terms of sitting down for 2 or 3 hours and going through bio flashcards and memorizing these lab cases, it really taught me motivation outside of yourself. Biology is not something that I really wanted to do for the rest of my life, but I'm glad that I took it. So the test was way easier than in the class. I want to know if anyone else has experienced that. Everything was so much more broad than we had learned in my class. And the FRQs were a lot more straightforward, but also gave you the opportunity to get granular, depending on how well you knew the subject. So my predicted score is a 3. And my tip to anyone taking AP Bio is to focus more on retaining information than getting a good grade in the class. And usually those two things should go together, but if you run into a situation where it's either get an A in this class or understand the material, especially if taking the AP test. So then the last test I want to talk about is AP Comparative Government, which I took today. So it's a lot like U.S. government. I'm a senior. I know a lot of juniors take U.S. government, especially at my school. I don't know if that's true everywhere. But if you're able to take AP Comparative Government and AP U.S. government in the same year, I highly recommend it because there's so much overlap. In Comparative Government, you learn about 6 countries, the United Kingdom, Nigeria, Mexico, Iran, and China and Russia. And then you've got to compare their historical governments, their current governments, their politics, their social structure, their citizens. And you use a lot of U.S. government terms. The tests I took today, I prepared for it as if it was going to be like, in 1965, what constitution did China affect because of their, I don't know, something super granular. The test is way more broad, at least in 2019 version. And it gives you, if you don't know the answer to something, there's a lot of room to work because the questions are so broad. So you can definitely collect those points even if you're not very confident. So I have to say the difficulty of the class was a couple steps above US government, only because, especially if you're learning about these countries and you have no experience with them before, it's a little bit difficult. You just gotta kind of get into that. But it wasn't too hard. It was your typical social studies AP course. It was not bad. It can be a little bit difficult, especially depending on the specific class. Vocab was not big on the AP test. There was not too much, like, the specific names of the specific historical, like, there wasn't any, like, I don't know. There was options where you could have got Grindel on the FRQ, but the multiple choice was broad. You didn't have to worry too much about the little details for comparative government. My tip for anyone who wants to take AP comparative government is you don't get a tip because my phone's about to run out of battery, so this video has to end. Don't subscribe, don't comment, I'm not interested, unless I specifically asked you to comment about something else in the video. Goodbye.